The stage lights gleamed like molten gold, warming the air with their intensity. The Kelly Clarkson Show's familiar pastel set glowed invitingly, the kind of place that usually put guests at ease. The audience clapped with thunderous excitement, a rhythmic wave of energy that rippled through the studio. Kelly, poised in her chair with a grin that carried both friendliness and the sharp edge of curiosity, leaned in toward her guest of the day. Across from her sat Teddy Swims, the soulful crooner with tattoos tracing his arms like maps of his journey. His oversized sweater and relaxed demeanor stood in contrast to the dazzling set, but that was part of his charm. He shifted slightly, adjusting the microphone clip to his collar, as the applause slowly faded. Kelly raised her hand, signaling the audience to settle, and her voice rang out warm yet pointed. "So, Teddy, your new album is everywhere right now," she said with a grin. "People are connecting to your voice, to your soul. How does it feel, man?" Teddy chuckled softly, his laughter tinged with disbelief at his own rising success. He ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head as though he still hadn't quite processed it all. "It feels surreal, Kelly. I mean, I came from nothing, and now people are singing along to songs I wrote in my bedroom. That's wild." The audience broke into cheers again, clapping for the humble authenticity in his words. Yet Kelly's eyes narrowed with the curiosity of a veteran who had seen too many artists ride the wave of stardom and crash. "Do you think the fame has changed you at all?" she asked, her tone light but edged. "Some critics say your sound feels a little more commercial than before." Teddy's smile faltered for the briefest moment, his eyes tightening. He shifted in his seat, leaning forward, and the pause was long enough for the audience to sense the shift in the room. "Commercial," he echoed, the word heavy on his tongue. "I mean, I've just been making the music I love. If more people are vibing with it, isn't that a good thing?" Kelly tilted her head, still smiling but in a way that pressed deeper. "Sure, but some fans feel like you've lost that rawness they first fell in love with." The atmosphere changed again, thicker, quieter, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Teddy leaned forward, his voice edged with warning. "Are we really going there?" The pause that followed Teddy's warning seemed to stretch longer than it should have. The audience shifted in their seats, the creak of chairs and the occasional cough filling the silence. Kelly sat straighter in her chair, her posture now more interviewer than entertainer, her voice measured but undeniably sharper. "I'm just saying," she began, tone edged with the kind of authority that came from years of navigating fame. Artists face pressure. "I've been there. You either fight to stay true to yourself or you give in to what the industry wants. Which one are you doing?" Her words landed like a challenge. Teddy's jaw tightened, his hands pressing against his knees as if to ground himself. He leaned in, eyes locked on hers, his tone heavier than before. "Kelly, with all respect, I'm not here to defend myself against some idea that I'm selling out. I put my heart in every track. That's real to me." The audience erupted in applause, though it wasn't unanimous. Some clapped loudly in support, while others looked around uneasily, unsure of whether they were watching a genuine conversation or a battle unraveling on daytime TV. Kelly didn't flinch. She had been in these chairs too many times before, but there was something electric about this exchange, something that felt raw, almost combustible. "But can you honestly say your label hasn't pushed you toward radio-friendly hits?" she pressed, her brows arching ever so slightly. Teddy exhaled sharply, shaking his head in disbelief. His frustration was no longer hidden but written plainly across his face. "See, this right here, that's the problem. People think they know my process, but they don't. Nobody was there when I was crying over lyrics at 3 a.m. Nobody was there when I bled into these songs." The crowd gasped audibly at his sudden intensity, a ripple of surprise and empathy sweeping through the room. For a moment, even the cameras seemed to lean closer, capturing the tremor in his voice. Kelly, hands lifting slightly in a calming gesture, tried to soften her words, but her professionalism kept her firm. "Hey, I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking the questions your fans are already thinking." Teddy's eyes burned, his voice cutting through the air like a snapped guitar string. "Nah, you're questioning my integrity. There's a difference." The studio went still, the tension now so thick it seemed almost tangible, clinging to the air with a weight no applause could disperse. The silence that followed Teddy's final words was deafening, as though the studio itself was frozen in place. Every camera, every spotlight, and every eye in the audience was locked on him. The set, normally a warm, comforting space designed to encourage laughter and ease, felt suddenly like a pressure cooker about to burst. Teddy leaned back in his chair, his breathing visible in the way his chest rose and fell. For a moment, it seemed like he might simply let the tension hang, that he might swallow the sting and continue on. But then, with a sharp movement, he pushed the microphone away, its metallic scrape against the table echoing across the hushed studio. "I don't have to sit here and prove myself," he said firmly, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of hurt. He rose from his seat, the legs of the chair screeching against the polished floor, the sound jagged and jarring. Gasps erupted from the audience, whispers spreading like wildfire. A woman in the front row clutched her chest, wide-eyed, while others leaned forward as though afraid to blink and miss what was happening. Kelly blinked, caught off guard for the first time. She leaned toward him, her hand out in a small, almost pleading gesture. "Teddy, wait." But he shook his head, not even glancing back at her. His steps were heavy, each one echoing against the set as he moved toward the stage's exit. "Nah, I'm done." The cameras followed him, capturing the sight of his figure striding away, his broad shoulders tense beneath the studio lights. The curtain fluttered as he disappeared behind it, swallowed by the shadows backstage. The audience was left buzzing with disbelief, a low hum of shock filling the air. Some whispered to each other furiously, already aware they had just witnessed a moment that would dominate social media and headlines within hours. Kelly exhaled slowly, forcing her posture back into composure. Her lips pressed into a thin smile, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. She turned back toward the cameras, her voice calm but taut. "Well, that was unexpected," she said. "We'll be right back after the break." The house lights dimmed instantly, signaling the end of the segment, but the energy in the room lingered, charged, unsettled, and unforgettable.